NBC News Decision 2008 Election Night.
Good evening, and we are already underway. The most exciting and important election night in several lifetimes already underway. We've already had the first poll closings. We'll get right to them. In the crucial state of Indiana at this hour, too close to call. You see 3% of the raw vote in. The equally crucial East Coast state of Virginia, too early to call. A different distinction, still not a reportable result for our purposes. In Georgia, too early to call between Obama and McCain. In the state of South Carolina, ditto, too early to call. But we have the first states to award at this hour. Kentucky goes in the McCain column as the GOP, it's safe to say, holding its breath going into tonight. Vermont goes into the Barack Obama column. Let's take a look at the electoral map tonight as we set up our coverage and set the stakes for this evening. You see the first two states awarded. When we start talking about the path to 270, the electoral votes needed to win the presidency, it gets interesting. Tonight here, we make history either way. It has been theorized this is the most potentially dangerous time for this country since the Second World War, with the possible exception of the Cuban Missile Crisis. The economy is in deep trouble. The president's approval rating is the lowest since polling began. Tonight, there are American troops, of course, fighting on two fronts overseas. It is against that backdrop that we elect a new president this evening. Our coverage is just getting underway, but tonight concludes the longest and wildest campaign in our history. In short, it's a night our friend Tim Russert would have loved. We'll cover it here in his spirit tonight. With me, my partners Tom Brokaw and Andrea Mitchell, and we'll be seeing our entire team over the course of the night. We're going to begin now with our political director, Chuck Todd. And Chuck, what are the essential states heading into tonight?
Well, Brian, the 7 o'clock call, which is interesting with the states that just closed, when you got Georgia, we got Kentucky, Indiana, and Virginia. And what's interesting about all four is the entire night can be summed up in what happens in these four states. Georgia will tell us, how big is that African-American turnout? Is it big enough that a state like Georgia is suddenly a toss-up state, a battleground state? Virginia, this is part of the Obama effort to expand the map to see if he can create a new path to 270 that didn't include Florida and Ohio, the two states that tripped up Al Gore and John Kerry. Indiana, of course, another one of these since 1964's states, Virginia being the other, North Dakota states that supposedly in the battleground haven't been carried by a Democrat since 1964. And then Kentucky, that's a state right now that just closed, and we get to find out this Democratic drive for 60 Senate seats. So right here at 7 o'clock, we've got potentially the entire storylines of the night encapsulated in these four states. One thing, I just want to introduce people to this map that we have here. You'll see we've got these thermometers, which will show you as the numbers go up, the finish line of 270, obviously red with McCain and blue for Obama. Brian?
We'll be familiar with that studio by the end of the night. Chuck Todd in our virtual reality electoral map studio, which brings us to Tom Brokaw. Tom, if you could set the goalposts on this night as we head in. I think it's fair to say what we said. The GOP is holding its breath at the start of election night.
Well, I'm going to change the metaphors if I can. I would say that there are a lot of seismologists out there who are testing the Earth because before the end of the evening, we could have a completely rearranged American landscape. There are some very strong signals that are in place already, but they may be false positives for all we know. We have to wait until we get the vote itself. I do think what we can say with certainty, based on all of the long lines that we saw at the polls today and this long campaign that kept the country's attention up at a very high level throughout 20 months, it's the end of apathy. People want to get back involved in their American political system because they have a big stake in it. This economy, I have never seen anything like this in my 40 years of reporting national politics, where there's so much uncertainty. And everyone says we've not reached the bottom yet. We are, as you said earlier, at 2 wars. But that really is off the map in terms of voter concerns, way down in single digits. People are terrified about what's going to happen to their own economic security and what kind of a country they're going to leave for their children. Nothing less than that is at stake here tonight.
We talk about these early signals, and Ann Curry is in our second of two digital studios looking at the exit poll information. Again, we interview the voters as they leave the polls all day today. And by the way, during the early voting, extensive early voting in 31 states in the days leading up to tonight, and tell us about some of those early signals that describe this electorate out there.
That's right, Brian, but to also illuminate what you just said, to gather our data, NBC News went to the polls all across the country, offering questionnaires to thousands to fill out by themselves. And we also spoke to early voters over the past few days by telephone to make sure that they were represented in our exit polling. And at this hour, our poll asked Americans how they voted, who they are, and what issues were most important to them. And they're telling us tonight in Virginia, our exit poll is telling us, giving us an idea, a window in the key state of Virginia, though it is still too early to call, Brian. And remember, this state has voted Republican in every presidential election since 1964. Well, John McCain has the advantage among white voters in Virginia, getting 58%, with Barack Obama getting 41%. But Obama is doing very well among black voters in Virginia, winning 91% compared to McCain's 9%. Obama's big advantage in money and organization has clearly helped him in the state of Virginia. 51% of Virginia voters were contacted by the Obama campaign versus 37% who said they heard from the McCain campaign. We also asked voters about the tone of this campaign and whether it was too negative. And 69% said that John McCain attacked Barack Obama unfairly, while 46% thought that Obama attacked McCain unfairly. So Obama's ground game and a sense that McCain may have attacked too harshly are helping Barack Obama. But John McCain's big advantage among white voters is keeping the traditionally red state of Virginia competitive at this hour, Brian.
Now, Ann, we're going to come back to you all night, but I want to early on share one of our secrets, and we're going to ask the control room to take away the magic in case those of you thought that Ann's life was in danger, that some of the graphics were flying by her at too fast. She's just in a green room, but we've made it our virtual NBC News exit poll rotunda.